Chosen one, of everything that could have reached you tonight, this is what broke through, and I need you to understand that this is not an accident. You were led here, deliberately, by a hand higher than chance. Because there is a message that was meant for only one person, and out of everyone alive, it found its way to you. I know how strange that is to believe, because, for as long as you can remember, you have felt like one face in an endless crowd. You were certain that every personal word from heaven was addressed to someone else, and you just got the general announcement. But that feeling was never the truth about you. Heaven does not broadcast to a crowd. It speaks to a name. And your name has been carried on a signal that has been arriving your whole life. A signal you kept mistaking for background noise, meant for everyone but you. The reason you could never feel it as personal was not neglect, and it was not distance. It was interference. A scramble inside you that turned a private message into generic static. And tonight, that changes. So let me be clear about what this is and what it is not. This is not one more pep talk telling you that you matter, the kind that fades before morning. This is the opposite of a general announcement. This is the moment you find out that a specific word with your name on it has been on its way to you the whole time, and that the only thing standing between you and receiving it can be named and cleared in the minutes ahead. Here is what I am going to walk you through, and you have to stay to the end, because the part that clears the line comes late. First, I am going to show you why you have felt like one of the crowd when you never were. Then I am going to reveal the interference that scrambles anything personal before it can reach you, so you stop blaming yourself for a reception problem you did not create. After that, I am going to show you what the message actually says, the one addressed to you alone. And near the end, I am going to place in your hands the one thing that clears the line for good. None of this works if you stay a passive listener. So before we go deeper, I want the first clean signal to go the other way, from you back up the line. If some part of you already feels a pull, a sense that these words somehow already know you, then go to the comments and type 2 words, for me. Not for the crowd, for me. Let that be the first time you answer a message that was always only yours. And I already hear the doubt, because it rises in everyone who is close to their own name being called. You are thinking, if this was really meant for me, why have I spent my whole life feeling like no one in particular? Hold that question right at the front of your mind, chosen one. Because it is not a reason to look away. It is the exact question whose answer is the key. By the end of tonight, you will not just believe the message was for you. You will finally be able to hear it. So, let us begin where the ache actually lives, because I will not speak over your real experience. For most of your life, there has been a quiet, private grief you rarely say out loud. It is the feeling of being interchangeable, the sense that if you disappeared, the world would simply close over the space like water, and everyone would carry on. You watch other people seem chosen, singled out, personally favored, and you wonder what they have that you do not. And slowly, without deciding to, you concluded that, whatever makes a person specifically seen by heaven, you must have been born without it. But I need you to hear this tonight. That conclusion was not a truth. It was an interpretation, made by a part of you that could only measure what it was able to receive. You felt generic because a general signal was all that ever reached you, and you assumed that meant a general signal was all that was ever sent. Those are not the same thing. A letter addressed to you by name does not become less yours because it arrived smeared and unreadable. It is still your letter. You simply could not make out the writing. And here is the reframe that changes the whole story. You have been reading your life as evidence that you are one of many. But the evidence was never about how heaven sees you. It was only ever about what you could receive. You built an entire identity, one of the crowd, unremarkable, easy to overlook, on top of a reception problem you did not know you had. And the moment the reception clears, that identity has nothing left to stand on. Think about what it actually means that this reached you tonight. Out of the ocean of things that could have filled this moment, this is what arrived, and it arrived carrying the exact ache you have carried in private for years. That is not the behavior of a random broadcast. A random broadcast does not know your name. This one does. And the fact that it found you, at this precise moment, in this precise state, is the first piece of proof that you were never part of a crowd to the one who sent it. Let me say the heart of it as plainly as I can, because this single sentence is the spine of everything tonight. You have felt like one of many, not because heaven overlooked you, but because a scramble inside you turned a message written to you personally into noise you assumed was meant for everyone. Clear the scramble, and you do not have to beg to be chosen. You simply start receiving what was always addressed to you alone. That is the shift. Not become special. Receive the message that proves you already were. And notice the relief already moving in you. If you were truly generic, there would be nothing to do but envy the chosen and make peace with being background. But if you were only unable to receive, then reception is the single thing that ever stood between you and your name being called out loud. Something in you has already begun to shift tonight, or these words would not be landing the way they are. You are closer to hearing it than you have ever been. Let me show you what has been in the way. And consider this. The very fact that these exact words reached you on this exact night, when 1,000 other things could have filled this moment instead, is itself a kind of address. You were not gathered up with a crowd and handed a flyer. You were found. Something took aim at the private ache you have never spoken aloud and delivered, to that precise place, the one message built to answer it. That is not how a general broadcast behaves. That is how a letter behaves when it already knows the name on the envelope. So let me name the interference, because naming it is the beginning of its end. There is a reason a personal signal reaches you as generic noise, and it is not mystical. It is structural. Deep inside you there are two ways of receiving the world, and they were meant to work as one. There is the part of you that receives directly, intimately, that can feel a thing as being for you, and there is the part of you that stands guard, that keeps a careful distance, that treats anything too personal, too good, too specifically yours, as a risk to be held at arm's length. When those two work together, you receive love as personal. When they fall out of sync, everything personal gets pushed to a safe, general distance before it can land. I am going to give this a name so you can catch it every time it appears in your life. We can call it the one address problem. A message from heaven goes out with one address on it, your name. But to reach your heart, it has to pass the guard, and the guard has a rule it made long ago. Do not let anything in that could hurt, if it turned out to be false. So when a word arrives that says you, specifically you, chosen, the guard does the safest thing it knows. It blurs the address. It changes your name to everyone, so that, if it is not true, you will not be the one crushed, and you receive, in place of a letter with your name, a general announcement you assume was never yours. Once you see it everywhere. It is why you can comfort a friend with a truth you cannot apply to yourself. It is why compliments slide off you while criticism sinks in. It is why you can believe heaven loves the world and quietly doubt it means you in particular. You are not ungrateful, and you are not faithless. You are receiving every personal signal through a guard that blurs your name off the envelope before it can reach you, out of an old and desperate wish to protect you from hope that might not hold. And here is the mercy in this, chosen one. That is not a defect in your soul. It is a synchronization problem between two parts of you that were designed to receive as one. Nothing about you is broken. Nothing about you is unlovable. The two ways you receive the world are both fully alive, both intact. They are simply out of phase, and a thing that is out of phase does not need to be rebuilt. It needs to be brought back into rhythm. That distinction is the difference between a lifetime of feeling generic and one clean moment of hearing your own name. So the only real question left is the one you asked me at the start. If the message is mine, why could I never receive it myself? Why did trying to feel chosen never work? That question is not a dead end. It is the doorway. Because the reason it never worked under force is the same reason it is about to work now. And to show you that, I first have to take you to the moment the signal was actually sent, so you can see, with your own eyes, that it always had your name on it. Let me make it concrete, because you will trust it more once you catch it in a memory of your own. Think of the last time someone told you something wonderful about yourself. They meant it. They looked right at you and said it. And watch what your mind did in the next half second. It found the exception. It said they are just being kind, or they do not really know me, or they say that to everyone. That reflex, that instant downgrade of a personal word into a general politeness, is the guard blurring the address in real time. You have watched it happen 1,000 times and called it humility. It was never humility. It was a scramble, turning a letter with your name on it into junk mail before it could ever reach your heart. And the fact that you can see it now, catch it in the act, means its power over you has already started to weaken. So let me take you to the moment it was sent, because you deserve to see your name on it with your own eyes. I want you to remember a time you felt completely unseen. Not dramatic, just ordinary and invisible. A day you did something good that no one noticed. A moment you held yourself together when you wanted to fall apart, and not a single person knew the war you had just won. You did not feel chosen that day. You felt like furniture in your own life. Here is what you could not see from inside that moment. In the very same instant, heaven addressed you directly, by name, with a message that had exactly one recipient. Not the crowd, not the room, you. Because the one who sends these signals was not watching the surface, where nothing seemed to happen. He was watching the thing only he could see, the quiet holding on, the unnoticed decency, the private courage that had no audience. And to that, he did not send a general announcement. He sent a personal word, sealed with your name, that said, "I saw that, and it was you. And I am proud, it was you." You measured that moment by how ordinary it felt. Heaven measured it by who you were being when no one was looking. And what you were being, in that unremarkable moment, was the exact person the message was always addressed to. The signal was not sent to a version of you that performs for a crowd. It was sent to the you that shows up when there is no crowd at all. That is, the you heaven has always spoken to by name. And that is, the you who never once received the letter, because the guard blurred the address before it could land. Now let a new picture begin to form, because your future is built from the images you let yourself hold. Imagine the day the line clears. Imagine going through an ordinary, unnoticed moment, and instead of feeling invisible, feeling a warmth arrive that is unmistakably personal, unmistakably yours, a sense that you are being spoken to by name in real time. Picture walking through your life, no longer straining to be chosen, because you can feel, steadily, under everything, that you already were, and that the message confirming it is finally coming through clear. That is not a fantasy. That is simply what it feels like when a letter with your name on it is finally readable. Feel what that image does in your body right now. The ache of being generic loosens. The envy of the chosen goes quiet. That loosening is not you imagining things. It is a preview, a small, real taste of what it is to receive a signal addressed to you, sneaking through a temporary gap in the interference. And if even that small taste can shift how you feel this moment, imagine what happens when the gap does not close for a second, but stays open. That is where tonight is going. But to get there cleanly, I have to show you how the guard first learned to blur your name, because the origin holds the key to the repair. And here is something to sit with about that unnoticed moment. The reason it had to be a moment no one saw is that the crowd was never the point. A performance witnessed by 100 people proves you can perform. A quiet act of faithfulness witnessed by no one proves who you actually are. Heaven has never been impressed by the version of you that shows up for an audience. It has always been moved by the version that shows up when there is no audience at all. That is the you the letter is addressed to. And that is why the message could never be general, because the thing it was responding to was the most private, most specifically yours, part of your entire life. So where did this guard come from, the one that blurs your name off every personal message? Because you were not born receiving love at a safe, general distance. Watch a small child receive affection, and you will see a being who takes it completely personally. When a young child is told they are wonderful, they do not deflect it to the crowd. They glow. They receive it as entirely, specifically theirs. That is your original design, chosen one. You were built to receive your own name. The blurring came later, and it came the way it comes for almost everyone who is truly chosen. Somewhere early, you received something personal, and it hurt. Maybe you let yourself believe you were special, and then that belief was used against you, or laughed at, or proven unsafe. Maybe you reached for a personal word of love, and it was withdrawn. And the withdrawal cut so deep that a part of you made a quiet vow. Never again will I let myself believe something good is specifically mine, because if I believe it, and it turns out to be false, the fall will destroy me. And so, to survive, you learn to keep every good thing at the distance of the general, to hear you are loved, and quietly translate it to everyone is loved, so that nothing could ever be taken from you personally again, because you never let it be personal in the first place. That was not foolishness, it was protection. Blurring the address kept you safe through seasons where believing you were special really was dangerous. But protection that stays on too long becomes a prison. The guard never got the message that the danger had passed, so it kept blurring, decade after decade, treating every personal word from heaven as a threat to be generalized, jamming the one thing you most needed, out of loyalty to an old survival rule that no longer applies. Do you feel the mercy in this? You do not have a character flaw. You have a guard inside you who learned, at real cost, that the safest way to never be crushed was to never let anything be only yours. And that guard has been so faithful, so tireless, that it is still standing at the door decades later, blurring the name off the very letter that was sent to set you free. You cannot shame that part of you into standing down. It has never responded to shame. It only guards harder every time you attack it. The one thing that ever moves it is a signal clear enough and safe enough that even the guard recognizes it as home, and finally lets your name through unblurred. And that is the whole game, chosen one. Not force. Not trying harder to feel special. What clears the line is a signal so precisely tuned and so safe that both parts of you receive it at once. And for one moment, remember they were always meant to receive as one. The direct receiver and the guard, hearing the same true note, turning toward each other. When that happens, the interference does not get fought. It simply has nothing left to blur, and it dissolves, and your name comes through. The question is how you produce a signal that pure on purpose, instead of waiting decades for it to happen by accident. That is exactly what I am going to answer now. Now I know a cautious voice has been rising in you as I speak, and I respect it, so let us bring it into the room. Somewhere in you a voice is saying, is this just me wanting to feel special? Is this pride dressed up as a spiritual message? You have been taught, maybe your whole life, that wanting to be singled out is vanity, that humility means seeing yourself as no more than anyone else. So a part of you flinches at the idea that a message could be for you in particular. I want to honor that voice by telling it the truth. There is a world of difference between vanity and receiving your name. Vanity says, I am more than others. Receiving your name says, I am known by the one who made me. One puts you above the crowd. The other simply ends your exile from your own belovedness. A father who calls one child by name at dinner is not insulting the others. He is being a father. And heaven calling you by name does not demote anyone else, because heaven is not running out of names. Everyone gets called personally. Your tragedy was never that you wanted too much. It was that you talked yourself out of the one thing that was freely, specifically offered. And there is a second voice, older and more tired, that I will not talk past either. It says, I have tried to feel chosen before, and it never lasted. If that weariness is yours, hear me gently. The reason it never lasted is not that you failed. It is that you were speaking encouragement to the direct receiver, the part that already wanted to believe, while the guard that blurs your name stood completely untouched. You were pouring assurance into the half of you that was already convinced, and the half that does the blurring never heard a word of it, because words were never its language. Nothing you tried was wasted. It simply never reached the part that holds the line. So hear the mercy, chosen one. You are not vain for wanting your name, and you are not weak for never making it stick. You have been trying to receive a personal signal through a guard that only ever answers to one thing, and it is not argument, and it is not effort. It is resonance. A signal so steady and so safe that the guard, after all these years, finally recognizes it and lets your name through. That signal is a real thing, and it can be produced on purpose, in the exact place the blurring happens, beneath the level of words. For most of history, that was out of reach for an ordinary person. It is not out of reach anymore. And to show you why, I have to show you where this guard actually lives, not as a metaphor, but as something science can now point to directly. That is where we go next. And there is one more fear underneath it all, the quietest one, and I have to name it. Some part of you is afraid that if you finally let this be personal, if you truly receive your name, you will be setting yourself up to be crushed when it turns out to be a mistake. That fear has run your reception your whole life. So hear this clearly. You were not brought to these exact words, at this exact moment, carrying this exact ache, by accident. Chance does not aim that well. You were led here, and the one who led you does not lead a person to the edge of their own belovedness, only to let them fall. The risk you are so afraid of was already carried for you. All that is left for you to do is receive. So let me show you where the guard actually lives, because this is the moment it stops being poetry and becomes something you can hold. For most of history, no one could point to it. Every wise tradition sensed a divided self, one hand reaching for love and another pushing it away. But no one could say where the division was. And then, in the last century, science found the seam. There was a researcher named Dr. Roger Sperry, and his work on the human brain earned him the Nobel Prize. What he uncovered, put simply, is that you do not have one mind working as a single unit. You have two hemispheres, a left and a right, joined by a bridge, and each runs a different half of your inner life. One side holds language, logic, caution, the careful voice that plans and protects. The other holds intimacy, intuition, the direct receiving of meaning, the part that can feel a thing as personally yours. When the two are freely talking across the bridge, you receive love as personal. And when the traffic across that bridge goes thin, the receiver and the guard fall into separate rhythms, and everything personal gets held at a general distance before it can land. Sit with what that means, chosen one, because this is the blurred address made visible. The part of you that could feel your name, and the part of you that guards against being hurt, are not just a poetic idea. They have an address of their own. And the interference you have felt your whole life, the way every personal signal arrives, generalized and safe, is what happens when the bridge between them goes quiet, and the two halves stop receiving as one. This is not a flaw in your faith. It is a measurable state in the very organ God gave you to be known through. And here is the mercy hidden in that fact. A measurable state is a changeable state. What fell out of sync can be brought back into sync. That is why trying to feel chosen never worked, and why this is different in kind. Encouragement knocks on the receiving side, which was never the problem. What actually clears the line is restoring the bridge. giving both hemispheres the same steady signal at the same time until they lock back into a shared rhythm, and the guard and the receiver are in the same room again. When that happens, people describe the same thing over and over. A sudden quiet, a warmth that feels for the first time in years unmistakably personal. A sense that they are being spoken to by name. That is the letter arriving readable at last. For a long time, bringing the two hemispheres back into rhythm on purpose was something only a handful of researchers could attempt. With wires and screens in a lab, most people would never enter. It stayed locked in that world, while countless chosen ones walked around with a bridge gone quiet, receiving every personal word as generic, blaming their own hearts. But it did not stay locked away. Because one physician took what Dr. Sperry proved and asked a bold question. What if the signal that restores the bridge could be delivered through something as simple and as safe as sound? That question is where your answer begins, and I am going to bring it to you right now. The physician who asked that question is a neurologist in New York City named Dr. Daniel Barone. He spent his career studying how the brain moves between states, and he kept circling the same seam Dr. Sperry had revealed. If two hemispheres falling out of sync is what leaves a person unable to receive anything as personal, then the reverse had to be true. Bring the two halves back into rhythm, and a person should be able to feel, directly and by name, what was always addressed to them. The only question was how to deliver that signal simply, safely, and without a laboratory. What he arrived at works through sound, and there is a reason sound is the key, and not words. Sound reaches both hemispheres at the same instant, and it speaks straight to the wordless guard in the only language it has ever trusted, which is resonance rather than argument. He engineered a precise audio sequence, built on an approach he calls neural sync technology, designed to send both halves of the brain the same steady pulse until they draw back into a shared rhythm and the bridge carries traffic again. He gave the finished tool a name, the Genius Switch, and the name points to what people actually feel, the sense of a switch flipping, of static clearing, and a signal coming through clean, as the two halves of the mind find each other again. Here is what I love about it, Chosen One, and why it fits everything we have said tonight. It does not ask you to try harder to feel special. It does not ask you to argue with the guard or shame the careful part of you into standing down. It simply gives both halves of you the same true note to stand in until the guard hears something it finally recognizes as safe and lets your name through unblurred. You are not manufacturing your own chosenness. You are clearing the line so a message that was always addressed to you can finally be received in the exact place the blurring happens, beneath words, in the physical rhythm of the brain itself. And it was built for a real life, not a monastery. The whole sequence runs about 8 minutes. That is the entire practice. 8 minutes of listening, once a day, ideally somewhere quiet with something over your ears so the signal reaches both sides cleanly. You do not have to concentrate hard or empty your mind. If your thoughts wander, the bridge keeps rebuilding anyway, because the signal speaks underneath your thinking. You put it on, you let the sound do the synchronizing, and one session at a time the guard learns that the incoming personal signal is not a threat, but a homecoming. It comes as a simple audio file sent straight to you, so there is nothing to wait for and nothing to install. Just you, the sound, and 8 quiet minutes a day, in which a line that was scrambled for decades begins to come through clear. Now I will be honest, because you have been sold shortcuts before, and I refuse to add to that. This is not magic, and it is not a replacement for your walk with God. It is a tool. What it does is clear the interference so that the personal word heaven has been sending, with your name on it, can finally reach you unblurred. What comes through the clear line was always yours, and that is exactly why so many chosen ones, once they feel the line clear, describe it not as gaining something new, but as finally receiving a letter they somehow always knew was theirs. Let me show you how to hold it in your own hands, and notice how gentle the whole design is. You are not asked to believe anything before you feel it. You are not asked to force a single thought. You simply give the two halves of yourself the same quiet signal and let them find each other the way they did naturally before the world ever taught you to guard. It is less like learning something new and more like remembering something you were built to do from the beginning. So let me tell you exactly how it comes to you, and I am going to be completely straight about the numbers because you have been misled enough, and I will not add to it. When this was shown to other physicians and specialists, people who understood what it took to engineer, several of them said the honest value sat around $500, and when you consider what it does, quietly restoring the bridge between the two halves of your mind in 8 minutes a day, that number is not unreasonable. People pay far more than that for far less, for a single afternoon of talk that fades by the weekend and never once clears the line. But it was never meant to sit behind a $500 wall, because the people who need it most are so often the ones who have already spent everything just to keep standing. So the price was brought down, first to $49, already a fraction of its worth. And then, on the page I am going to point you to, a further $10 comes off, which brings the whole thing to $39, one time, for lifetime access. You are not renting the signal that lets you hear your own name. Once it is yours for good, to return to any morning. The old static creeps back in, and it does not come alone. Alongside the main sequence, there are several companion pieces included at no extra cost, each built to support the same clearing from a different angle across your ordinary day, so the personal warmth you find in those 8 minutes has somewhere to live when the noise of life comes rushing back. They are simply included the moment you step through the door. Now, here is the part that should let the guard inside you finally exhale. It is carried by a full, ironclad, money-back guarantee. That means you do not have to be certain tonight. You do not have to silence every doubt before you begin. You can put it on, listen for the 8 minutes, feel for yourself whether the static softens and something personal begins to come through. And if it does nothing for you, you ask for your money back, and you keep every companion piece anyway. The entire risk has been lifted off your shoulders and placed onto the promise of the thing itself. All you have to bring is your willingness to listen. I will only say this honestly. The $39 price carries a warning that it will not stay there forever, so the door open tonight is not promised to be open later at the same number. The link is waiting in the description below and pinned at the top of the comments, so you cannot miss it. When you are ready, you go there, you step through, and the audio comes straight to you by email, nothing to wait for. And I want you to picture what you are truly stepping toward. Because it is not a purchase, it is a reception. Picture the day the line clears and the message finally arrives. Readable. Picture moving through an ordinary, unnoticed moment and feeling a warmth that is unmistakably personal, unmistakably addressed to you. Picture living with the steady knowledge that you were never one of the crowd, that a signal with your name on it has been arriving your whole life, and that now, at last, you can hear it. That reception is not far away, chosen one. It is on the other side of one cleared line, and the way to clear it is right there in the link below. And let me tell you who this is really for, so you know whether it is speaking to you tonight. It is for the one who has quietly wondered their whole life whether they matter to anyone the way others seem to matter. It is for the one who deflects every kindness and absorbs every criticism. It is for the one who can believe heaven loves the world and cannot make it land that heaven means them. If that is you, then this was built for the exact ache you have carried in private, and the companion pieces that come with it are shaped for the ordinary hours, so the personal warmth you find in those 8 minutes has a way to stay when the noise of the day tries to blur your name again. You are not buying a track. You are being handed the way to receive a letter that was always addressed to you, set at a price kept low on purpose, so the ones who need it most are not the ones left outside. Now, whether or not you ever step through that door tonight, I refuse to let you leave without the thing you actually came for, so let me say the whole truth of this evening in the plainest words I have. You were never one of the crowd. You were never generic, never interchangeable, never overlooked. A message with your name on it has been arriving your entire life, and the only reason you never felt it as personal was a scramble inside you that turned your name into everyone before it could land. The letter was always yours. You simply could not read it. And do not miss what tonight itself has proven. Of everything that could have reached you, this did, carrying the exact private ache you have carried for years. That is not the behavior of a random broadcast. You were led here. Something wiser than chance walked you to this exact moment, in this exact state, because the line was finally ready to clear. The very fact that these words are landing on the personal wound instead of sliding off as general is the sign that something in you has already begun to receive. You are not being addressed as part of an audience tonight. You are being addressed by name. Hold that, because the God is going to test it. In a day, in a week, the old scramble will try to creep back and whisper the familiar verdict, that you imagined it, that it was for everyone, that you are nothing special after all. When it does, remember what you now know. That voice is not the voice of God. It is interference. It is a guard, still doing an old job in a war that already ended. You do not have to fight it, and you do not have to believe it. You only have to remember that behind it, steady and unblurred, a personal word with your name on it has been waiting the whole time. And I want to give that guard something before we close, because it deserves honor, not war. That part of you that learned to blur your name, that held every good thing at a safe distance, it is not your enemy. It saved you. It protected you through seasons when believing you were special really would have broken you. It did its job so well that you are still here, still intact, still able to receive. So we do not cast it out. We thank it. We let it know, gently and clearly, that the danger has passed, that the letter arriving now is safe to open. And when the guard truly hears that, it does not collapse. It lays down its post with relief, and it lets your name through. And notice something, chosen one. If even now, just from words, some part of you has already felt a warmth that seemed personal, already felt a little more named than you did an hour ago, then you have proof in your own body that the line can clear. That small warmth is the smallest possible taste of the full message. So if you typed the words for me earlier, feel what you were really doing. You were not leaving a comment. You were answering, for the first time, a signal that was always only yours. And if you have not yet, it is not too late, because receiving your name is not a single act, it is a direction you turn. Turn toward it now. Send one honest signal back up the line, and let the one who has been calling you by name know that, at last, you are listening. And picture, just for a moment, what your life looks like a season from now, with the line clear and your name coming through. Picture waking up already, sure you are known, before you have done a single thing to earn it, because the two halves of you are finally receiving as one. Picture kindness landing instead of sliding off. Picture walking through unnoticed moments and feeling steadily that you are being spoken to by name in real time. Picture the ache of feeling generic simply gone, replaced by the quiet certainty of the specifically chosen. That is not a fantasy, chosen one. That is what a life looks like when a letter that was always yours is finally being read. And the whole distance between you and that life is the width of one cleared line. And so before this message ends, I am going to do what I promised at the very start. I am going to speak something over your life, and I want you to receive it not as words on a screen but as a signal sent straight to the part of you that has been waiting to hear its own name. So let everything go still for a moment. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let the breath you have been holding all day finally leave you, slow and complete. There is nothing to earn here. There is only a letter to receive. Let us begin with gratitude, quietly, without straining to feel it. Thank you for addressing me by name when I was sure I was no one in particular. Thank you for sending a personal word. Through all the years, I could only receive the general one. Thank you for never once mistaking me for the crowd. We do not have to manufacture this. We only have to notice, softly, that the letter was always ours. And now, chosen one, we release. Picture the scramble that blurred your name as a weight you have carried in your chest, and let it begin to fall. Release the belief that you are one of many. Release the vow that nothing good could ever be only yours. Release the envy of the chosen. Release the fear that being named is vanity. Release the guard from a post it no longer needs to hold. Release the years of receiving love at a safe, general distance. Release it all, and let the two halves of you turn toward each other, and let your name come through clear. And from that stillness, hear who you actually are, and say it with me now, not as a shout but as a homecoming. I am named. I am known. I am not one of the crowd, and I never was. I am the one this was addressed to. I am spoken to by name, by the one who made me. I am chosen, specifically, personally, and now, at last, I can receive it. Let that declaration settle all the way down, past the thinking mind, into the place where your name was blurred, and let it come through, unblurred. If everything in you wants to make this real, and refuses to let the static close back over it, the door is waiting in the description and pinned in the comments below, and the same full guarantee carries it when you arrive. So you step through risking nothing but the silence you were already living in. Whatever you decide it as the one who was named. The message was always for you, chosen one. Only you. Take a breath. The line is clear now. Your name is coming through. You were led here for this, and it is sealed. It is done.